All right, ready to dive into another deep dive with me.
Always.
Today, we're going headfirst into one of the most talked about events in American history, JFK assassination.
One that still has people talking, for sure.
Definitely. Specifically, we're going to be examining some research that challenges the Warren Commission's findings. The folks who officially investigated the assassination.
Yeah, you've provided us with some excerpts from Fair Play magazine, issues 19 and 20, published way back in 1997.
Oh, well, that's quite a while ago.
It is. It's packed with firsthand accounts, expert analyses, and some really intriguing alternative theories.
Intriguing is an understatement. When we think about the JFK assassination, the rifle that was found at the scene is almost always a key piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
But what if that piece didn't quite fit the way we thought it did? That's exactly what these fair play researchers are suggesting. So let's dive into their argument.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so the commonly accepted narrative is that a Mannlicher Carcano rifle was discovered on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository and was the weapon used to assassinate President Kennedy.
Right. That's what most of the history books will tell you.
Right.
But fair play brings up something fascinating. A lot of the initial reports, including some from law enforcement, actually labeled that same rifle as a 7.65 Mauser. Why would there be that confusion in the immediate aftermath?
Well, some people say it was just a simple mistake, made in the heat of the moment. A chaotic scene like that, it could easily lead to misidentification.
Yeah, makes sense.
But Fair Play digs a little deeper, suggesting it might have been more deliberate, and this is where things get really interesting. The concept of the rifle's clip becomes really crucial here.
Okay, hold on. Why would a clip be so important in all of this?
Well, because it highlights a key difference between these two types of rifles. The Mannlicher Carcano uses a clip to feed ammunition, whereas Mausers do not. And guess what? Photos taken shortly after the rifle was discovered show a clip present. But Fair Play argues that it wasn't there originally.
So are they suggesting that maybe someone added that clip later to kind of make it fit the Mannlicher Carcano story? But why go through all that trouble?
That's one of the questions that Fair Play is wrestling with. One possibility is that it was part of a larger effort to kind of solidify that lone gunman theory, to point the finger directly at Lee Harvey Oswald.
So by making the evidence more definitively match a Mannlicher Carcano, they're strengthening the case against Oswald.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not even just about the clip itself. Fair Play raises questions about the chain of custody, that official record of who handled the rifle and when. They focus specifically on the testimony of Roger Craig, a witness who actually claimed to have seen the rifle both with and without a clip, suggesting that tampering might have happened.
That's a pretty big claim. Do they have any other evidence to kind of back that up?
Yeah, they actually analyzed photos of Lieutenant Day, who was responsible for securing the rifle.
Okay.
In some photos, the rifle has a clip, and then in others, it doesn't. And Fair Play uses this to kind of question the procedures, the handling procedures, and the whole timeline of the investigation.
So if we're following their line of thinking, this isn't just about a clip. It's about potential evidence manipulation at the highest levels. Wouldn't a compromised chain of custody have massive implications for the entire investigation?
Absolutely. It throws the reliability of all the evidence into question.
Yeah.
If the handling of the rifle was so haphazard, who's to say that other pieces of evidence weren't tampered with as well?
Right.
That's a scary thought, and that's something Fair Play really wants us to consider.
And then, just to add another layer of intrigue, they bring up a memo from, get this, J. Edgar Hoover himself,
Oh, wow.
the head of the FBI.
Yeah.
And he mentions the possibility that the rifle was actually dropped and handled by multiple people. What are we supposed to make of that?
Well, think about it. If a crucial piece of evidence, like the alleged murder weapon, was mishandled that badly, it would raise serious concerns about the integrity of the whole investigation, right?
Yeah, of course.
Fair Play certainly seems to think so.
Okay, so we've got potentially misidentified rifles, a clip that mysteriously appears, and a questionable chain of custody. This is all very interesting, but where does the famous magic bullet theory fit into all of this?
That's a great question, and Fair Play does kind of touch on it, but not extensively. Do you remember those early reports that labeled the rifle as a Mauser?
Yeah.
Fair Play suggests that an S marking on the rifle itself might have actually contributed to that mix-up.
An S marking. What is that all about?
Well, they're suggesting that it could mean that the rifle was a modified Mannlicher Carcano.
Okay.
You see, the standard Carcano used a round bullet, but A modified version could actually fire a pointed bullet, what's known as a Spitzer bullet.
And this is all relevant to the magic bullet because
Because the magic bullet, the one that supposedly went through President Kennedy and then wounded Governor Connolly, was a Spitzer bullet. So, fair play is suggesting that a modified Carcano could actually explain the type of bullet that was used in the assassination.
hold on a second. A modified rifle, a potentially planted clip, and a questionable chain of custody. They're really building a case here. But before we jump to any conclusions, there's another really interesting point they bring up. Missing time in the official timeline of the crime scene investigation on the 6th floor. Why would there be gaps in such an important record?
That's precisely what fair play wants to know.
Yeah.
These missing minutes really do raise some serious questions. What was happening during that missing time? Could it have been a chance for evidence tampering to happen? Fair play really does leave us pondering that possibility. It's really easy to get lost in the technical details when we dive into events like this. But fair play does something really important. They bring in the human element.
Oh, you mean like those firsthand accounts from the people who were actually there that day?
Yeah, exactly. They weave in these personal stories and testimonies. It gives you a whole other perspective on all the chaos and confusion that surrounded the assassination. It's a stark contrast to the official reports, which can be pretty dry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's like we're looking at the event through a microscope rather than experiencing it through the eyes of those who lived through it.
Exactly. And by including these stories, fair play reminds us that behind all the theories and analysis are real people, whose lives were changed forever by this tragedy.
It is a good reminder that history isn't just a collection of facts and dates. It's about the human experience. It's about the impact these events had on people.
Absolutely. And fair play doesn't just focus on those eyewitness accounts, they also bring in expert analysis from different fields like ballistics and forensic science. It's a pretty multifaceted approach to understanding the assassination.
So they're not just cherry-picking evidence that fits a narrative. They're trying to present a comprehensive view, incorporating all these different perspectives.
Right. And they acknowledge that there might not be one definitive answer. They kind of embrace that. In fact, they encourage people to really grapple with the uncertainties and the complexities of the case rather than presenting a simplistic black and white version of events.
It sounds like they're really emphasizing the importance of critical thinking, especially when dealing with a very sensitive historical event like this.
Absolutely. They want you to actively engage with the material, question everything, and draw your own conclusions based on the evidence that they're presenting.
Okay, so they're raising questions, they're presenting evidence, they're encouraging critical thinking. What's their ultimate goal? What are they trying to do with this research?
Well, on one hand, they're trying to find out what really happened to President Kennedy. They're challenging that accepted narrative, and they're offering up alternative interpretations. But they're also trying to expose the flaws in the official investigation and the possibility of government deception.
So it's not just about JFK. It's about transparency and accountability.
Exactly. The JFK assassination, in many ways, serves as this powerful case study in how official narratives can be constructed and how evidence can be manipulated. Fair play uses this historical event to highlight the importance of questioning authority and demanding truth from those in power.
That's a pretty relevant message, especially in today's world. Where we're bombarded with so much information, so much misinformation, it can be really difficult to know what to believe.
It really is. Fair play encourages us to kind of approach information with a healthy dose of skepticism, to be critical consumers of media, and to be discerning about the sources that we choose to trust.
Yeah, that's good advice. But with so much information out there, so many conflicting theories and interpretations, where do we even start? How do we even begin to try and find something that resembles the truth?
That's the big question. And while fair play doesn't say they have all the answers, they do offer some pretty solid guidelines. They emphasize the importance of primary sources, corroborating evidence from multiple sources, and considering all viewpoints, even the ones that might challenge our own preconceived notions.
So it's about doing your own research. It's about being curious and not just blindly accepting what you're told.
That's right. It's about being an active participant in the search for truth, not just a passive consumer of information.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's be honest. Fair play also delves into some pretty controversial theories like the idea that the CIA was connected to the assassination. How do they handle such a sensitive topic?
Carefully, but also with a commitment to exploring all the possibilities. They present the evidence that they've gathered, acknowledging that some of it is circumstantial and open to interpretation.
So they're not necessarily endorsing these theories, but they are presenting them as possible avenues for further investigation. Like, hey, here's what we found. Now you decide what to make of it.
Yeah, that's fair to say. They're providing a platform for those who question the official narrative and for those who think that maybe there's more to the story than what we've been told. They're not saying this is definitely what happened. They're more like, this is worth looking into.
It sounds like a delicate balancing act, right?
Yeah.
To present those alternative theories without just going into speculation or conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
How do they manage that?
They lean heavily on documented evidence, eyewitness accounts, and expert analysis. They lay out the facts and they connect the dots. They highlight any potential connections and inconsistencies, and they leave it up to the reader to decide how important each piece of evidence is.
That's an important distinction to make. They're not forcing a certain interpretation, but they are presenting the information in a way that encourages us to think critically, draw our own conclusions. I like that. It feels like they respect the reader.
It does. Fair Play trusts its readers to be discerning, to evaluate the evidence and come up with their own opinions. They're not trying to feed you a specific narrative. They're trying to get readers to be active participants in the process of historical inquiry.
So we've talked about the human element, the importance of critical thinking, and exploring alternative theories. But there's another key aspect of any investigation, especially one like this: the chain of custody. Didn't Fair Play raise some serious questions about that?
They did. And remember, the chain of custody refers to that careful documentation of who handled the evidence and when. It's to ensure that the evidence is accurate, that it hasn't been tampered with. Fair Play argues that the chain of custody for the rifle that was found in the Texas School Book Depository was sloppy at best and deliberately compromised at worst.
Yeah, okay. Remind me why that's so important. Like, what would the implications of a compromised chain of custody be in this case?
Well, just think about it. If that rifle, the alleged murder weapon, wasn't handled properly, if there are missing pieces in the timeline or inconsistencies in the records, it raises doubts about the reliability of that evidence. Could someone have tampered with that rifle? Could they have switched it out with another weapon? These are the questions that we have to ask when the chain of custody is compromised.
Yeah, and those are not small questions to ask. If the chain of custody is messed up, it could potentially undermine the entire case against Oswald.
Yeah, exactly. And Fair Play backs up their concerns with specific examples, like conflicting reports from witnesses who saw that rifle right after it was found. Some of them say it didn't look the same in the photographs that were taken later. They also point out discrepancies in the serial number that was recorded by different law enforcement agencies.
So they're saying that the rifle in the official evidence photos might not be the same rifle that was found at the scene.
Yeah, that's what they're implying. And if that's true, it really does cast doubt on the authenticity of the evidence that was used to convict Oswald.
That's wild. It's really interesting how something like a chain of custody, which seems so simple, can unravel an entire narrative.
It is. And it speaks to the meticulous research and the critical thinking that Fair Play used. They weren't just accepting the official story at face value. They were really looking for any inconsistencies and following the evidence wherever it led them.
And it sounds like it led them down some pretty interesting and maybe even unsettling paths.
Yeah.
But we've only scratched the surface of their research.
Right, we haven't even talked about the Zapruder film, that famous home movie that actually caught the assassination on film, or even their take on all the theories that try to explain all these inconsistencies and unanswered questions.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to dive back into this. Where do you say we take a quick break and then we come back to unravel some more of these JFK mysteries? Okay, so we're back and ready to go even deeper down this JFK rabbit hole. We've talked about the rifle, the chain of custody, even that memo from J. Edgar Hoover. But what really gets me are all the different theories, swirling around the assassination. Fair Play really goes for it with those, right?
Oh, yeah, they really do. And it's
Yeah.
not just a quick look either. They spend a lot of time in these issues breaking down all these theories that try to explain all the things that just don't add up about the assassination.
Right, because it's one thing to say, hey, something's wrong with the official story. But then you have to offer some kind of alternative explanation, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What kind of theories are we even talking about?
Well, all kinds. Fair Play looks at those claims of multiple shooters. They go deep into the possibility of the mob being involved, and they even look into the idea of a government cover-up. Some of these theories are pretty out there.
It does sound like they're trying to capture the full spectrum of, everything that's come out in the wake of the assassination. But are they saying that these theories are fact, or are they looking at them a little more critically?
That's what's so cool about fair play. They're not just blindly accepting or promoting these theories. They're looking at them critically, examining the evidence and highlighting what makes sense and what doesn't for each argument.
So they're encouraging people to think critically and make up their own minds. It's like they're saying, here's all the info, now you decide.
Yeah, exactly. They're not trying to tell you what to believe. They're trying to give you the tools and information to make your own educated choices.
That's a much better approach.
Yeah.
Especially when we're talking about something as sensitive and emotional as the JFK assassination.
Right.
There's already so much bad information and speculation out there.
Absolutely.
It's important to be grounded in the facts.
You got it. And that's something Fair Play does well. They lay out the facts as they found them, analyze the different interpretations, and say, hey, more research is needed here.
It seems like they're genuinely trying to get to the bottom of what happened,
Huh.
even if it means questioning everything they thought they knew or considering ideas that might seem a little crazy at first.
That's what good research is all about, right?
Yeah.
You gotta be open to all possibilities, follow the evidence, and not be afraid to ask the tough questions.
And speaking of tough questions, there's one piece of evidence that always gets people talking. The Zapruder film. That's the home movie that caught the assassination right. What did the Fair Play folks think about that?
The Zapruder film,
Yeah.
it's a fascinating but also controversial piece of the puzzle. Fair Play doesn't shy away from that controversy.
Okay.
In fact, they even bring up the possibility that the film might have been changed.
Changed? What do you mean? Like, how could a film like that be changed, and why would anyone do that?
Well, they mention a couple of things. First, there are missing frames, which is strange considering how important the film is. And then there are some things that don't add up in how Governor Connolly, who was in the car with Kennedy, reacts to being shot. Some people argue that these things point to tampering.
So they're saying that maybe someone edited the film to change the story, maybe to hide something that didn't fit the official story.
That's the idea. It's important to remember that people still argue about whether the Zapruder film is real or not. There are experts on both sides. But Fair Play lays out the evidence and lets readers decide for themselves.
I gotta admit, the more we talk about this, the more I start to question everything I thought I knew about JFK.
Right.
It's like peeling back layers of an onion. The story keeps getting more and more complex.
That's what happens when you've got good research and critical thinking. It challenges what you believe, makes you understand more, and forces you to face things that might be uncomfortable.
And Fair Play, with its close examination of the evidence and its willingness to explore all the theories, really captures that spirit.
For sure. They're not giving you the easy answers.
Right.
They're inviting you to join them on a journey to find the truth, even if there might not be a clear destination.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? What do they need to remember from all of this?
I think the big takeaway is this. Never stop asking questions. Never stop looking for the truth, even when something seems settled or a story feels complete. The JFK assassination is a perfect example of how history can be complicated, messy, and open to different interpretations.
And Fair Play gives us the tools and the push to deal with that complexity, to be critical thinkers, and come up with our own well-informed opinions.
Exactly. They're not telling you what to think. They're showing you how to think, which is a great skill no matter how you feel about the JFK assassination.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the world of JFK assassination research. Big thanks for joining us on this journey. We encourage you to keep exploring this fascinating topic. You never know what truths you might find.